Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Scottish Football Social Club. We're live in Premier Sports in association with McBookie, and it's been a while since we last saw you. And since we last saw you, much has changed. The top two in the Premiership no longer have a 100% record. After a right ding-dong battle on Saturday, which we will come to, the Rangers manager's under pressure again. Didn't take long. England have got a new manager. He's a German. Scotland have still got the same manager, and Scotland didn't lose, which was wonderful. Thank goodness for that. And Ronaldo was furious, stormed off that Hampden pitch. And from a Scotland fan's point of view, wasn't that glorious? One thing that hasn't changed, though, to the shock of the thousands watching, it's the same two pundits, Alan Hutton, Michael Stewart, back with us. Good to be back, isn't it, Al? Last Monday, was there something missing in your heart without this show?
I'm starting to feel that way. Every week that passes and we get going, I'm starting to feel that I miss it in the international break. So glad it's back.
Good. And just on the note that I just mentioned a second ago there, Al, did you ever come off a football pitch raging, furious? Did you ever storm off?
Well, every other week probably. I had a problem with the red mist once or twice, but I'm sure Michael's got a couple of stories as well.
Oh, Michael's got stories, but hold on, just before we come to Michael, Gav, the producer's just sent me a message. Oh, he's got something he'd like to show us. This may be familiar. Michael Stewart, Hamilton Accies away. Forget that. Raging after a red card, and down he goes. Michael, all the memories.
Oh, you must have done a cruciate or something there, by the way. That looks so up.
I can't remember. Some good editing from Gav there. I think he's a bit of AI on the go.
That's amazing.
Do you remember it, Michael? What happened?
I don't. I'm being serious. I think Gav's tinkered around with something there.
Listen,
he remembers it.
Away, post red card. He took a swipe, down he went, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
What you won't be surprised to hear is that that red card was rescinded. Another outrageous decision.
Here we go. We need to get the tackle, and then we'll make our minds up then if that's the case.
Don't worry about the tackle.
That's how poor it was.
Don't you worry about that, Al. Just him falling in the tunnel. That's what the viewers want.
Yeah.
Anyway, come on. Let's get right into it. Well, shall we start with Celtic Aberdeen? What a match on Saturday, Michael. Top two going head-to-head. Loads of question marks over Aberdeen going into this game and the mentality. And could they stay the distance, if you want, in this match and beyond? They certainly did in the game, didn't they, with a stunning comeback?
I mean, what can you say other than just hugely impressive from Aberdeen to, for a number of factors, because they didn't start particularly well, although they weren't terrible, but it felt as if it was just falling into a familiar pattern, and it was going to be a familiar storyline of you think you can challenge, but no, you can't. And then to come back with the second half performance, and that goal, the first one in particular, the chest control and the ball through from McGrath, Jamie McGrath, was absolutely top class. It really was. And I just can't, I can't give them enough credit, because that was it was the biggest test, obviously, for them. And 2-0 down at half time, they didn't panic and they came storming back. Incredible.
Yeah, total chaos at the end of the game. That was
brilliant.
Off the line there, Michael. Some questions over handball. It wasn't clear. It wasn't clear at all anyway. There was certainly no proof if it did hit his hand at all. But on the subject of Duke, by the way, I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've been live. I think you've lost another set of fans, because I saw them on social media. You said something about Duke in that last show, saying he was carrying a bit of extra timber, Michael. And that's upset some of the Dons fans who said he has just, you did. They've said he's just bulked up, Michael. It's not he's just bulked up.
Well, he had a lot of time to bulk up, so fair play.
Indeed.
It was some clearance, wasn't it, though, Michael? Regardless, you okay? You're right there, Joe.
I'm all right. Yes, of course. I'm just moving the extra timber about, just trying to get a steady picture.
Good. And I see, are you in the drawing room tonight?
No, dining room.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This house must be on the market, Al, because he's in a different room.
Honestly, every single week we do this, and it's like another room. It's like, look at the other room. I think he is probably getting ready to sell it, and he wants everybody out there to have a wee look. So maybe we'll get a tour. Maybe one Monday night we'll get a tour of it.
Oh, let's get a bit of light. It's too dark.
That'd be us hitting the depths. It would be the depths if we ever get a house tour, I tell you. Al, we'll come to Celtic in a minute, but on Aberdeen, I mean, you have to say, from what they've done so far this season, to go 2-0 down, they could have folded, as many done at Celtic Park, but Jimmy Tillin makes two really positive changes at half-time and they get the rewards.
Look, that was a big thing for me. I mean, a lot of teams would have went to Celtic Park, sat back, tried not to give away opportunities, 2-0 down. He's got a different mindset. He's thinking, no, what can I do to change this? How can I move it forward? Soccer comes on, Duke comes on, instant impact within the game. And even later on, Morris comes on as well out wide. He wants to go for the victory. It's not about, can we just hold on to this draw, if you like. He's looking to go and win games. And fair play to him. I mean, they just keep rolling on. This was the big test for them. And I think they've come out with flying colours, especially after being 2-0 down. They didn't crumble, showed amazing character, and in a right good place at this moment in time.
Michael, you have to stay calm, don't you, in situations like that? And I don't know if you saw the interview Graham Shinney did after the game, but he was talking about Jimmy Tillin and the halftime team talk. There was no shouting. It was very measured. It was instructions about what they could do better in the second half, what they could change to influence the game. Look, we've had him on the show. He's an impressive character, but he does seem to have this aura about him of calmness, and there's never going to be any panic.
Yeah, of course. That is clearly his character. Very calm and composed, even in the face of what would clearly have been a stressful period where his side were second best. They were away from home against the champions. And look, I think we've said right from the get-go that the thing with Aberdeen is there's a clarity in terms of what they're trying to do. It's not to say that, raising your voice and shouting and what Alan and I would have been used to growing up. Things have changed slightly, but there's a time and a place. But if Jimmy Tillin was to do something like that, it probably wouldn't, the players would be like, that's not really him. So I think for him to maintain that calmness would have given a bit of confidence to the players. Because I think if he'd started shouting, it probably would have fed through to the players that he's panicking a wee bit here. And for him to stay calm, as you said, clear instructions, get the message across, make those two substitutions as well. It speaks volumes, and it's really, it's setting things up for the campaign to. There's going to be dips, of course there are, but it's setting this campaign up to be an absolutely memorable, incredible one for Aberdeen.
Al,
how far can they go?
Time will tell. I mean, depending on the team round about. Look, I think they've got everything there. Jimmy Tillin's getting the best out of that squad. I think the confidence there, of course, momentum as well. So there'll be no reason. Look, they're not going to talk about it at this moment in time, but there's no reason why they can't continue. They'll feel within the group that they can. They've showed that by going to arguably the toughest place right now, as Mikey said, the champions, and could have come away with 3 points. So I think moving forward, yes, they're going to be tested and there will be ups and downs, but they're in a very good place, full of confidence as well.
Michael, what about Celtic? Obviously, no panic required. Another big game to come in Europe this week. Maybe not being quite as fluent in recent matches as you saw earlier in the season. But what do you think of Celtic and maybe a few defensive question marks right now without Carter Vickers?
Well, I think obviously Carter Vickers being back, in the side is a massive plus for them. And you saw that last season when there was obviously a lot of problems and there was lots of uncertainty around what was actually happening. The team had players missing, and when Carter Vickers came back into the team, he brought a calmness. He brought confidence to those that were around him as well with his performances and his leadership skills. So even though the team's always been doing very, very well this season, when you take somebody like him out of the team, it's obviously going to have an effect. And I think you saw that Aberdeen, this is it's not a fluke what's happened here. They've played. We saw this with Falkirk when they went to Celtic Park in regards to they had a clear identity and an idea about what they were trying to do. And in a similar vein, that's what Aberdeen have done there. That they've analysed Celtic, recognised how their game can affect Celtic, and the possession stats are fascinating. Obviously, 16% possession that Aberdeen had, but it never felt like a game where Celtic were so on top that it was backs against the wall for Aberdeen. It constantly felt like Aberdeen were able to go and really hurt Celtic. And if you spoke to any of the supporters that were there, that sense was there in the stadium as well. This was a very evenly fought contest, even though Aberdeen had very few, minutes on the ball. And the point I'm bringing up there is that Celtic defensively, with Carter Vickers, obviously it becomes a more difficult task. But Aberdeen were able to exploit what they had there, and for Celtic, it's a huge game, obviously midweek away from home against Atalanta, and they're going to be. If Carter Vickers is close, I would imagine he's going to be playing that game.
Yeah, Mikey, do you feel? Sorry, Dad. Mikey, do you feel like that's how teams will now look at Celtic? I know it's difficult, but they'll look at them and say, "This is how we get at this back line." Like the fast transitions. You talk about Falkirk. We know Borussia Dortmund's on a different level, but they still done that fast transitions. Now Aberdeen have done it. Is that their weakness, Jane?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's all well and good, looking at that and saying, right, okay, this is what we are going to try and do against them. You have to have the right personnel. And obviously not every team have that. And that's the two things that are very, consistent with Falkirk and Aberdeen in particular, is pace and penetration in the wide areas. At half-time, Yemi Talene, he makes a substitution, he takes off Clarkson and he brings on Duke in the wide area. McGrath comes in field, and obviously the striker was changed. So he went even heavier into it in terms of more pace, more transitional opportunities. Not every team has that. So True. Yes, I think that is something that you would look at in terms of trying to go after them, but it's difficult because not every team has that. But pace is so important.
Yeah, and Atalanta have that, Alan. As you know, they were brilliant last season to win the Europa League. I think all eyes are going to be on Celtic and what they do, their approach in this game. Brendan Rodgers has been so clear, not irked much by the criticism, and so clear of the fact that he's not going to go away from his footballing principles. He wants to find a balance in this Celtic team in Champions League nights. But do you think now there'll be a bit of pragmatism that some former managers have called for, like Neil Lennon? Do you think you will see much of a change from Celtic? Because there's a lot riding on this game for them after Dortmund.
Yeah, definitely is. They'll definitely want to bounce back after that and show their qualities. Do I think he'll change dramatically? I don't think so. I think he's got a particular way of playing and that won't change. I think at times, look, defensively you have to be sound. We spoke about this before, I remember, and I know it's different teams. When we went with Rangers and we played in certain games away from home, especially the difficult ties, you were defensive. You tried to hit in the quick transitions. Whether they do that, I'm not so sure. I think Brendan Rodgers has got his own plan, his own philosophy, and he'll stick to it. So, well, it's going to be an interesting game. They're a top team with a lot of pace who can hurt you. So it'll be an interesting to see how he lines up against them.
Alan's mentioned Rangers there, Michael. Should we move on? Or do you want a
quick
one?
No, what we can do is we can just go by it.
Michael.
We'll forget about it, and then
I'll give him a bit of respite, okay. And I'll finish off the conversation about the Champions League first, and then I'll go on to Rangers. But for Celtic, I don't think it's not. We spoke about this before. It doesn't have to be this polarised debate about being defensive or being ultra attacking. The key is the balance. And
exactly,
what happened in Dortmund was that they turned the ball over far too often, and they were exposed. They've got to be a little bit more cute about that in terms of like physicality at the top end of the park with Ida on occasions might be the best way to to play. That doesn't mean that you abandon playing short passes, of course, but it's an alternative and it's a bit of a different option just to try and stretch the game and give you an out ball if you're under serious pressure. Now, I think Ida playing up top, there's a reason he's in the squad. He's the reason that Celtic bought him. And it's not a downgrade, and it's not, all right, we're just going to play a long ball. But having that physicality and having that pace to then hit on the counter and get the team further up the park, that's not abandoning the principles of playing good football. It just gives you a bit of a breather and an out ball on occasions when you're being really suffocated like they were in Dortmund for a period of the game.
And players need to adapt as well, don't they? When you know that you're up against it in the pitch, and maybe just sit a little bit deeper for a few minutes and try and make sure you don't concede another quick goal. It's happened over and over in the past for Celtic on some of those heavy defeats. The fans will be watching closely, because I know a lot of Celtic fans on social media were saying after that last Dortmund game that they've had enough of this. They've had enough of these big score lines going against them. So they want a change. We'll see what happens midweek. Al, we need to get on to Rangers. First of all, we should say Kilmarnock were excellent. This looks more like the Kilmarnock and Derek McInnes' side of last season, doesn't it? They're getting their game together again. Hard to beat, extremely difficult to beat at home, compact as well, and they picked Rangers off when they needed to.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a hard place to go, but I think defensively they were solid, they were very strong, resolute, and they made it difficult. I mean, I can't believe this is the only thing we're going to show, but I mean, they made it really difficult. And actually, like, you look at the first half, Kilmarnock had the bigger opportunities to score. They had the offside goal as well. I think that's the thing for them. Defensively solid, but also have the threat.
Are you wanting extended highlights of it, Al?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's what this game was. I mean, it was that. So, look, Kilmarnock point of view, I thought they were brilliant. Derek McInnes will be really happy with the way his team performed. But from a Rangers point of view, I'm looking at it and I don't want to hear the excuses. Like, the manager's talking about no excuses, but then talks about the pitch, then talks about the wind. Both teams have to play there. It is what it is. You know what you're going into. It's going to be a difficult game. But from a Rangers point of view going forward, I mean, I just think they have to do more. I mean, Dessers, Lawrence, Bayrami, Cherny, they have to produce more on that stage. If you want to go and win titles, you want to go and win games, you need to be doing more. And I just don't think they have that at this moment in time. It's difficult. I've said it's going to be up and down. I've not changed my mind, but that's not good enough. I mean, it's quite as simple as that.
We'll come back to all of that in just a second. But Michael, John Suter, I thought was outstanding for Scotland. He actually played really well on the day, but not great on the goal Rangers conceded. What did he have to do there?
I mean, look, you've hit the nail on the head. He was great. He was absolutely outstanding for Scotland, and he was good in this game, you know, for large periods of it. The difficulty here is that Casemiro is actually a yard deeper, and he's playing Watkins on side. So as much as John Suter's got to do better once the ball, he's a bit slow to react, and then Watkins does really well just physically, just to nudge him a little bit, and it just keeps him off balance. So it's not solely down to John Suter, because the right back's just that little bit too deep and he's not reacted quick enough. As soon as the ball's played, he's just got to react a little bit quicker and then not allow himself to get knocked off balance. But look, we're focusing on one instant there, right? Which ultimately has led to the goal.
Game.
Has led to the goal, right? But see, everyone else just mentioned, that is not, he's hit the nub on the head. He's hit the nail on the head in terms of, like, not just that game, but Rangers as a team, right? You look at Bayrami, Lawrence, and Cherny on the right-hand side. That front three that are in behind the striker, they're all technically nice players, but the game passes them by. That's a game at Kilmarnock where first you've got to compete. You know that. You've got to compete. But then you've got to have guys that are, you know, going to actually make an impact in the game. And far too often in big games, I don't think that they're going to have that impact. And then you've got Dessers at the top. Now, we can get, this is the eternal debate about Dessers. Oh, his numbers are good. Right. Okay. I can't argue about that. But I think everybody looks at like performances like that yesterday from Dessers and recognises that Rangers need a better number 9 if they're going to genuinely compete. And you can look across the rest of the team. I think you've taken the leaders out of the team and they've not been replaced in terms of characters. And you're looking for dominant performances when you go to somewhere like Kilmarnock. And this Rangers side don't have that at the moment. And Alan's talking about ups and downs. I just don't know, and genuinely, I don't know if this team is capable of progressing to the level that they need to get to. I don't know.
Michael, look at the comment coming in from Callum Clark, who obviously is questioning the future of Philip Clement, whether he'd be there beyond January. Yep. And there's talk of Derek McInnes replacing him. Could easily see Derek McInnes replacing him. Callum said, look, Derek McInnes was offered the Rangers job in the past, Alan. Yep. And I seem to remember he turned that Rangers job down. Yeah. Maybe it would be, well, you'd imagine there's a good chance it would be different this time around. The club are in a different place this time around. But regardless, Alan, you know, Philip Clement has been there for a year. Do you see any progress?
No. Not at this moment in time. Have they won a trophy when he first came in? Yes. Were they close with the last 8-10 weeks of the season? Yes. And then they fell away. They weren't good enough. Is the team weaker than last year? Yes, I think they are. Mikey's touched on it. The leaders that have left, everything that's had to go round, it's just not been great. But for it to come to an end, I think they have to stick with somebody. Look, and don't get it wrong. If the performances and the results keep continuing in this fashion, then it's going to be hard for him to stay there, of course. But at some stage, you have to stick with somebody and allow him to build something. That's
is
why
this
we
the guy?
talk about.
Is this the guy to stick with, though, Alan? From what you're
I
seeing,
I thought so at one stage. I thought he got a real lift in the squad and the group of players that he had when he first came in, and I think we could all agree that we've seen that. Then they dropped off. It was about, can you then make that squad better? With everything that's going on behind the scenes in the club at the moment and the people that have left, they are a weakened team. So it's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to happen overnight. It's whether he gets the time, and that's the big question mark, because you don't get it. I feel he has got the attributes. If you give him what he needs, then he can make a good fist of it.
Alan,
At this moment in time, no.
I
understand
he might not have had his prime targets, okay, but he's still brought in several players now. And he said, let's get through this window. Remember a few weeks ago, he said, let's get through the window and then you'll start seeing the real Rangers come out.
Yeah, well, right, okay. Well, if we look at the boys that he's brought in, are they up to that standard at this moment in time to go and compete in the Europa League, to go and compete against Celtic? I don't think so. And that's my honest opinion from what I've seen so far. It hasn't been good enough.
Michael, do you just go back to the comment a second ago there? Do you think somebody like Derek McInnes would get more out of this current Rangers squad? Because the next manager is going to have to work with this group of players. There can't be massive change again, even if they did replace the manager, because of the financial state. Yeah, go on.
What you're hypothesising is exactly what Philippe Clement had to do last season.
Yes.
He came in and tried to get the best out of what Michael Beale had put together. And Michael Beale spent, a lot of money. And I'm totally with Alan in regards to, back end of last season, I don't think anybody could disputed that Philippe Clement had done an incredible job. The team fell apart. And then there's a mentality amongst the supporters of, this is a group of losers, we need to break them up. But the problem is that you pass and you move on some of these experienced guys, which in an ideal world probably wasn't the wrong thing to do, but they've not been replaced. You're trying to recruit and replace leaders at a time where you're cost cutting as well. It's an incredibly difficult job to do.
Okay,
they've not recruited well enough. They've not recruited
that's
well
clear.
enough.
We all know the recruitment's been absolutely shambolic. But Michael, the question...
But how much is that, Darryl, down to poor recruitment on the manager's behalf, or they're just not they're not capable of shopping it to the level that they need to? I think it's a bit of both, by the way. I think it's a bit of both.
You can get the best out of teams, though, can't you? Alan, you've said this before. We were talking about Rangers Leon and the budget. You said you can get the best out of teams.
But Michael touched on it, though. So if you go back to the budget thing, it's always going to be there. It's a factor. I don't understand why everybody keeps talking about it, because that's been how it has been forever for Scottish teams going and playing in Europe. That gap's massive. But you need leaders, you need people within your dressing room who know what it's all about, who know what it takes to write 5 minutes like the Celtic game against Dortmund. If it was my teams, for talking sake, Davy Weir, Barry Ferguson, whoever, Lee McCulloch, right you in, just let's sit for 5-10 minutes. You had those leaders on the pitch to help you through, and then you had the young players that were coming, the new signings, and they added their bit. I think at this moment in time, you look at Rangers midfield, I think Barron's done excellent since he's been there. I like Diamandi, but they've not got that presence within there to just go, right, this is what we're doing. And that's what they miss. The likes of Lundstrom and all these guys, Ryan Jack, I know he was injured a lot, but all these guys going out the building doesn't help. They don't have the money to replace them, and they won't for the foreseeable. So that's a problem.
But there is talent in that team, though, Alan. There is some
of
talent.
course.
It might not be the standard it was a couple of years ago, but some talent. So is the manager getting the best out of the current team?
Darryl, can I just say here, forgetting about talent for a second here, what yesterday showed was character, you know?
Well, which is kind of my point I was trying to make, Michael. Is the manager, is he getting enough out of the team? And is there enough characters, leaders in that dressing room as well to work with? Because
they don't come cheap. They don't come cheap, though.
See, like, I go back to the point I just made. I don't think they've recruited well enough. And I think that's partly down to their own mistakes, but also it's cost cutting, so it's a very difficult thing to try and balance, right? But I don't think they've had enough certainty in terms of what they're actually looking for, and it ends up being a little bit of, oh, we'll take that, we'll take this, and all right,
and hopefully,
yeah, and it's hoping. So when you look at somebody like Robin Proper that's come in, here's a 20s captain. You think good experience, and he's come in, and I'm looking at him thinking, not here, not physical enough, doesn't talk enough, doesn't communicate. He's not a lead. But you look at it from the outside, and you think to yourself, "Oh, that looks like that should be a good addition," but it doesn't look like it. Yesterday, he was ran ragged by Kyle Vassell, and I go back to what I said about the front line. These are guys that aren't going to have an impact. Look what Aberdeen, they've brought in young Topi Keskinen, absolute dynamite. Looks like an absolute perfect addition.
Yeah, so, but does that tell you what's going on in the background, though?
Back with us, by the way, Al. He's
no director of football, no whatever. Yes. So we're talking about that. This is a situation as well that we need to look at. So yes, the product's on the pitch. Who's making the decisions? Do you know what I mean? Behind the scenes, so Aberdeen maybe have a good way of going about it. They've scouted whatever they've used their network. They're getting in the likes of Keskinen and these young players are coming in and thriving under a young, hungry manager. Rangers don't have that.
No,
they've not had that for a while.
I'm reading Callum's comments there. It's basically the point I was trying to make, that it's a bit of both. I don't think you can discount the fact that cost cutting does have an effect, but equally they haven't recruited well enough. And the biggest, forgetting about ability, the biggest concern at Rangers is when you've lost Goldson, Lundstrom, Jack, even the likes of like Roof and people like that who are experienced guys, didn't play a lot, but you can imagine when you take all of that, and there'll be more, Barisic as well. When you take all of that out of a changing room, that has a huge, huge effect, and it puts even more pressure on the likes of Tavernier. He is really the only experienced leader, and Jack Butland in goals, who's left there. And they can't carry the can on their own.
A lot of those players you've just mentioned, though, were also underperforming at the end of last season, Michael, and some of those players also wanted to move on. That's why they weren't at the football club.
Yes,
Darryl, exactly. That's why, though, because in your mind they're thinking, right, my future's not here. I'm going to look after number one. So I don't like saying players down tools. I don't like to use that term, but they're thinking of their own future, and I think that's probably why they fell away in a way.
Yep.
Al, there's no doubt. But Al, would you? How many more bad results does the manager get then?
Not very many, is my honest truth. Because I've been the one that said they've given him the contract. They need to stop this cycle of just rinse and repeat with players, with managers. Right, you need to use this squad, and then somebody else comes in. It needs to stop at some stage. But I ultimately understand that it's a results business, and he has to get results. I do think the squad is good enough to get results, especially domestically, but it's, as you put it, getting the best out of them. If it doesn't pick up performances as well, look, you're in a high stakes position. You won't last long.
Last one on Rangers, I
was leading on from it in terms of, you talk about not getting results. He's not got many more. All you need to do is look 10 days ahead. There's a game at Pittodrie, and
European games.
Stoya on Thursday at home, St Mirren at home, and Aberdeen away. You just feel that these three games, on the back of that performance and result at Rugby Park, they could be defining. And I've got a lot of sympathy for Clement for the reasons that I've pointed out, that it's incredibly difficult to manage on a downturn. But results...
when expectations are through the roof.
Yeah.
So you're saying exactly what you said. It's on a downturn, but the expectations are still there to go and compete in Europe and go and win leagues and trophies. So it's a difficult one for them.
I think at the very least, though, what you'd expect is the desire, the hunger to win games. Celtic slip up, so do Aberdeen the day before. Rangers get the chance to respond. And I think what's also been questioned by some of the Rangers fans you see on social media is how many of those players really understand the football club and have the desire to go and make a difference and claw back the points. Anyway, we've got to move on because Hearts are a team that have made a change, Michael. Neil Critchley's come in. I'll ask you more about him in just a moment. But what an excellent introduction of Neil Critchley to the Hearts fans this performance against St Mirren was.
Well, I mean, it's by far the best performance and result that they've managed this season. Wonderful goals that they scored. The first one there, the link-up play between Vargas and Shankland, and the finish. Oyegoki with a great goal as well. young Wilson gets on the act here,
Yeah.
and then the final one from Spittle, another brilliant finish from Blair Spittle. So look, the overall performance was much improved. To be for the last couple, obviously they got beat at Pittodrie, but the general performance was better. The European result was obviously positive as well. So the last couple of games under Liam Fox felt like things were turning slightly, but that there on Saturday is what is needed, because let's not beat about the bush here. And there's a lot of fans that are not happy, when we talk about these things, but it's the reality. It's an underwhelming appointment, Neil Critchley, and the only way that he's going to gain more support and gain the trust and gain the belief is by getting results.
But you said, Michael, you said trust the analytics as well, and they did, and that's the direction that seemed to take them. Maybe it didn't look so good because they obviously wanted another manager ahead of Neil Critchley, and that played out in public, and maybe that doesn't then look quite so good. But in the end, the analytics were apparently what drove them to Neil Critchley. So do you not trust the process?
Yeah, but you need to look at in terms of what is the information that's being put into the analytics to come out with.
We'll never know.
Well, but this is so you can't just if you're in a position of authority, you can't just abdicate your all responsibility and absolve yourself of any impact or effect on what you say and just say, oh, well, type it and go, oh, the computer says that.
Yeah.
So
he must have interviewed very well.
Well, of course he should. But the point I make is that when you look at his track record, it's patchy at best. So when you look at the full picture, that's why I'm saying it's underwhelming. He was sacked from Blackpool after 2 league games this season, and then he's got a better job. So congratulations, and he'll be loving it. But from Hearts' perspective, it's a risky appointment. And it's at a time where I've said on a number of occasions, Hearts needs stability. And this, to a certain extent, is a risky appointment. And
are you not happy with the appointment?
Make no bones about it. That result on Saturday was absolutely massive, huge.
And he got
he's
the
literally
best
not answered.
He's
literally not answered. He's not answered your question.
He's avoided.
He just kind of.
Sorry, what?
Michael, are you happy with the appointment?
We're happy with it.
Yes.
Well, I don't get
as a jambo.
I don't get up or down with football, Darryl. I told you I'm underwhelmed by it, and
so you're on the fence.
I'm waiting to see what transpires. But my concern is that the board and the people that are making these decisions, I'm not fully believing, and I don't have full confidence in their track record of appointing managers either. And I said something the other week about in terms of there's no football acumen on the board, and I've heard a few people talking about, well, no board does. The point I'm trying to make is that most clubs nowadays have either got a strong leader in terms of a director of football, or they have a strong manager. And at the moment, my concern is for Hearts that they don't really have that. They've got a sporting director whose background is sports science, and they've now gone with a manager who is very much like a coach. He's not a real leader manager, and that's what's brought them to making that appointment. That's my concern. I'm unsure, and I'm waiting to see what pans out. And I don't know. I don't think anybody could say, "Oh yeah, hands down, brilliant."
He's worked with some top managers, Neil Critchley, so he does have a good track record in some respects. And Blackpool, obviously, first time round went very well. QPR was a disaster, and then it didn't work out second time round at Blackpool. He's with Steven Gerrard at Villa. You'll know Alan as well.
If you were to put your neck on the line, Darryl, would you say it would be successful or not?
Well, impossible to say. I agree with you. However, I would agree that it caught a few people by surprise, because I think, and we spoke in this show, I think a lot of people expected maybe something left field, but maybe something
a little bit obscure,
had a record abroad or something like that.
Well, Per Mateus Hogmo, when that was floated, you're thinking to yourself, I tell you what, if this is what the data is bringing out and analytics, if Hearts are able to get Hogmo, you're thinking that is a great bit of business. But that pursuit and the way that went also just undermines my confidence.
So, Mikey, he was the first choice.
Yes,
clearly.
He was.
Right, and so you'll know more. So what went wrong? What was the?
It was money.
Anything came out? Was that what it came down to? Basically, money. But then, if you want to take your club to the next level, and I think the recruitment's been good, do you not need somebody like that in charge, like you're saying, big character, who's going to be able to lead them, get the best out of them to take them to the next level? Because it's obviously not been good enough, has it?
Well,
Neil Critchley, he's worked with a lot of young players, Michael. You mentioned James Wilson scoring. He's certainly going to give young players a chance. He's done
He worked
that
with Danda as well,
so far.
I'm sure.
Say
Did he
again,
not have Danda? Did he not work with Danda?
Yes.
Was it Liverpool as a kid?
Yeah.
So again, I think you have to wait and see. You have to wait and see how it plays out. I thought that performance was very good. Don't get me wrong. St Mirren defensively, I thought were shocking at times. Standing off, some really good goals, but really standing off and not getting tight to people. But I thought Hearts looked like they played with freedom. The formation looked good. They played with freedom. They looked like the weight of the world had been lifted off their shoulders. Whether that comes down to him or a new voice or whatever, time will tell.
Yeah. And this week, before the game on Saturday, like certainly, I'm looking at it and thinking his first week is huge. You've got obviously the first game that is massive for all the reasons we've just been talking about, and the need to get off on a quick start, followed up by Ammonia Nicosia in the Conference League, and then the derby on Sunday.
Oh, that could be tasty, eh?
If he's chalked the first one off with a brilliant result and a good performance, the next two, if he can pick up 2 positive results in that space of time, that buys a lot of goodwill. A lot.
I'll come back to the derby in just a moment. Interesting tonight, I'm just seeing some headlines on Stephen Robinson. Obviously, it wasn't a good day for St Mirren at the weekend, but there's talk of Stephen Robinson getting an extended contract. Obviously, no rash reaction then to the 4-0 defeat. But Alan, he very much would deserve that, wouldn't he? He's done a fantastic job there.
Yeah, he has. And I think his team has set the bar high. So when things like this happens, you see the reaction. He was raging. I mean, you could tell in his press conference, you could tell was his reaction. I think it was the second goal. Oyegoki, I think, puts into the top corner, and then the camera pans right and he starts kicking the seat. So he expects a higher level of performance from his squad. And that's what we're used to.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. More manager reactions in just a moment as we move swiftly on to Dundee United against Hibs. What a game this was, Michael. We've said it a few times, the Hibbies this season, throwing points away late in the day. The goalkeeper, Bursick's had an absolute nightmare, but Dundee United just keep on racking up the points, Michael.
They do. I mean, it's been a fantastic return to the top flight. I mean, this was a great bit of play from Glenn Middleton to begin with.
Pace in the wide areas, Michael, what you like?
Yeah.
What's that?
Pace in the wide areas, that's what you like.
Look, I think everybody should like it, Al, because it's such a weapon. But you're looking at it and thinking to yourself, this is dangerous for Hibs, and then all of a sudden they get back 2-1 in front. A beater with a great ball.
That was a shocker, by the way.
It's not great. It's not great.
I thought that could be a red on its own.
Aye, and that's 5 minutes to go. They're 2-1 up. I still think down to 10 men, you've got to have enough about you to see the game out. Bursick, not good enough. Defensively, they're all over the place. Look at the number of bodies they've got there. They've got plenty of bodies there, but nobody's taking responsibility. And this is a long ball up the park. Don't win the first ball. The goalie gets involved when he never should. A great finish, and all of a sudden, staring down the barrel of another defeat. It really is. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Hibs have turned into a fine art of being able to do that this season so far.
There, just let your back four deal with it as a goalkeeper. Look, I'm not a goalkeeper, but just allow him to go and header it. Stay on your line. It doesn't happen. Like you're saying, just see the game out. You're at the bottom of the league. You just need that little bit of luck. That rub of the green will probably get you through that game. 3 points, buzzing, move on, and it lifts you. But oh my God, it seems like everything at this moment in time just going against them.
I mean, it does. It really does. And Michael, you mentioned the derby. There's obviously pressure on David Gray going into this game. In fact, just look at the league table, because we've hammered Hearts on the short times this season, and yet Hibs are below them. Yeah. And that maybe says it all. This is a huge Edinburgh derby for David Gray, for all the Hibs fans. There's a comment coming in here. Which manager has more pressure on them going into Edinburgh derby this weekend? Clark gone, it has to be David Gray.
Oh my goodness. He's praying for a win.
I wonder if that was that. No, that's not. That wasn't Craig's dad, was it? No,
maybe.
I think obviously because of the big performance and result that Neil Critchley got, and he's just in the door. But again, had that not gone well on Saturday, you're thinking to yourself, depending on what happens midweek, there would be big pressure on that derby game. But going into it, David Gray's under the most pressure, because this is a calamitous start to the season for Hibs. And the concern for Hibs, very much in the same vein as what we're talking about with Rangers, you look at the team, you're saying, where's the characters? Where's the leaders? And I really, really hope it doesn't transpire, but you just look at that and you think to yourself, that can turn into a death spiral and they don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah. David Gray needs to keep his eye on the ball or the water bottle, Al. I don't know. Michael actually found this. He's got this thing on social media. First of all, look at Jim Goodwin. Going on. Down he goes. And then watch David Gray. He takes a fresh air pick. That is calamity, isn't it?
Well, I'm going to give David Gray the benefit of the doubt. Look, he goes to kick it there, but he maybe just realised to himself, look, if I connect with this, it could go anywhere. And maybe I'll just pull out of that one. But Jim Goodwin, that was brilliant. That was absolute comedy gold.
Total bedlam, Michael.
Well, I mean, look, that's what football's all about. Seeing the celebrations and the emotions, but
emotional roller coaster is what it's called. One high, one low.
I still don't know what actually happened to Jim Goodwin.
No.
I still don't know.
It's those leather soles.
I think he was a sniper in the crowd.
Yeah. He's gone down. Anyway, he won't care. 3 points on the board. And that Edinburgh derby, as we've just said, must watch this weekend. Some brilliant games this weekend, including Aberdeen, Dundee United live in Premier Sports, which is also going to be absolutely brilliant. We don't have long left. As you know, we're past that 40-minute mark. I told you, Michael, we hit 45. They start pulling the things out the back of your computer. So come on, a couple more games to get through. Motherwell 0, Dundee 1. Good goal from Lyle Cameron in here, who we've talked about this season. Michael, and I think this probably burst a few coupons because Motherwell were going really well into this game and Dundee had dropped a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly felt like it was one of those games where Dundee had to try and get a victory to turn things around a little bit. Great finish from Lyle Cameron, just following the game up well, dropping on the loose ball and putting it away neatly. I think it probably was a bit of a coupon buster. Motherwell.
Dundee needed it. Dundee needed it, Michael, didn't they? Especially because you think what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago before the international break, their game against Kilmarnock, the way they threw that away, they needed a positive response, and that might just get them right back on track. Yeah, I mean, look, Dundee are still going to be competitive, there's no question, but that's why I was saying that game was, they needed to get 3 points because, like we're talking about with Hibs, which is an extreme case, if things start to drift, it becomes all the more difficult to turn things around. Dundee just felt like they were on the cusp there because of what you were saying about the way the Kilmarnock game finished, 2-1 up with a few minutes to go and then losing the game 3-2. That is a perfect way to react, and it just sort of puts that to bed and they can start to look forward again. Yeah, Trevor Carson back in goal as well for Dundee. They keep a clean sheet, so I think there's plenty of positives. Carson against his old club. He was in as captain as well, so we'll see if that plays out in the next few weeks. If he keeps his place, he certainly did enough on that day. St Johnstone 3, Ross County 0. It's hard enough to win with 11, Al, when you're down to 9. Even more tricky.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Valakari in the stands, everybody's playing for the future. And I think the biggest thing for St Johnstone is they had 2 difficult games against Rangers where it was 2-0, and then Celtic it was 6, which is a more difficult one. But I think when you've got Kimpioka back and Sidibe and balls like that into the box, but these guys are a problem. They can score goals, and the manager looks. You've seen him. The camera pans to him in the crowd, and he's up and he's animated and he's getting into everything. So he's going to be a right character. That Telfer, it's a really bad challenge. He was just on the pitch. It's not ideal. The early sending off obviously affects them in the way they're going to play moving forward, but it's always going to be difficult. But it's good to see St Johnstone have that bounce. Mackenzie Kirk, youngster again, Andy Kirk's son, getting on the score sheet. But I think all-round good performance from St Johnstone, and they'll be a problem for teams moving forward, I think.
I think you're right, Al. Valakari is going to be a good fit for Scottish football.
Yeah.
he looks a real character. Michael, is this the post-Levine effect hitting St Johnstone?
Well, certainly a bit of positivity that's been lacking for a while, that's for sure. But when you look at the table just starting to take shape, results like that for St Johnstone are key because they're playing against sides that are going to be in and around them, and picking up 3 points at home is vital if they're going to try and make sure they don't get dragged into the relegation fight again this year.
Yep, absolutely right. We're almost at that 45-minute mark. We should wrap it up. Are you looking forward to Aberdeen, Dundee United? Alan, you there?
Yeah, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to see Aberdeen again. I think every time I've been there and seen them, they've been excellent. So I'm sure they'll be up for it, and it's got the makings of a great game.
It does. Have they got a little quiet space in the corner for you, Al?
But hopefully, we'll see how it goes. I mean,
Michael,
Ross County was a little bit dangerous, but we'll be all right.
Yeah. Michael, you can look after him again. Great stuff. Guys, thank you very much. Enjoy that this weekend. Looking forward to that live in Premier Sports, Aberdeen Dundee United, which is Saturday, 5:30 kickoff. And we're back in the Social Club next Monday night. We'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
You could always move before.
No, but I was just scared to.
Like,